Everyone, this is KP bringing you another KP Talks. I'm here with the legend himself, Ryan Chen, Viridian. How's it going, bud?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I figured we'd pick this amazing wallpaper in honor of you. Um, or maybe it's more in honor of Alex a little bit because he won with Wind, but
The best green card for sure.
the best green card. Oh yeah, green for Viridian. Um, we're here to talk about some of the new stuff with the new sets and to drop a spoiler and just our opinions on the game, where it's at right now, and yeah, just have some good conversation. Uh, so Ryan, oh man, it's I'm not gonna call you Ryan this whole time. It's weird to call you Ryan. I'm gonna call you Viridian. Um, so you played in Worlds this year, and you played a lot after Worlds even. I was at the Winter Cup myself for a similar format, I guess, in that sense. Not the same as Worlds, but you know what I mean.
It is a competitive event, that
Yeah.
a
Uh,
lot of people went to.
what do you think? I know the answer to this a little bit, but what do you think has changed since Worlds, in terms of just the format itself? Like, what cards showed up at Worlds that you think aren't good right now anymore, or vice versa? What showed up because of the existence of the decks at Worlds?
Yeah, so Worlds was a two deck format, so obviously that kind of warps the game a little bit in terms of like what kind of decks you want to bring. Usually, I think from personal experience for two deck formats, usually you can just bring two fast decks and hope
Mm-hmm.
that the other person can't really answer two fast decks. So both Wall 7 and the Mono Ice General Rugidine decks were like pretty strong there, right? Let's say a lot of Team NA did very well with that. But now that the format, especially like so, I know in other regions, Europe and North America, we mostly just had one Winter Cup, just locals, not any major competitive events. But I know in Japan they've still had, what you would consider major events there or competitive events with the official Square Enix prizing. And these have been one deck format, and they qualify you for the Majinsen, I believe it's called the playoffs,
I
which is
think that's
happening
right.
this weekend.
Yeah.
So I've one of my teammates, Eureka, has been kind of following the meta. They do publish the results, and you can kind of see that some of the initial Worlds decks are no longer like the best decks anymore. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people started figuring out answers to the Wall 7 decks. So like one weakness of the Wall 7 deck is if you Amat them, it's a big CP sink for them. So Fire Water started coming up a little bit in the beginning, which kind of led to innovation in there. The Tyvus Twins Axstar deck.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. A couple things. I remember when we were talking about Worlds decks and stuff. Like I brought up because we were helping each other. I was helping you test and all that kind of stuff. And like I brought up the Amalev, and then you were also testing it, but we didn't talk about it until like it was just one of us brought it up, right? It just we both found it
yeah.
out like at the same time. Like, wait, you have to play this card. Like, it was kind of funny. And then the yeah, it's funny. Like the Tyvus, um, I don't want to say Tyvus was a sleeper card, but I kind of feel like it was at Worlds, even when it shouldn't have been. Like maybe not exactly at Worlds, but I feel like a lot of people didn't give it enough credit until like right at Worlds. I don't know. Like I and then the
I think
I think
for a lot
Steve
of
Dolman played the Fire Water like twins with Yuzuki's and Tybus and stuff like that and did really well with it too. Like
I think
it's crazy.
because Worlds was like so quick after the set released, a lot of the people, that card goes quite well in the Wall 7 decks. They were just trying to figure out how to build a Wall 7 deck in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know the community kind of memes like, oh, the 7 CP wall deck is like so strong and stuff, but I think you really have to give credit to the players who first started making these Wall 7 decks, like uh, Kaka and his team. I don't even think Kaka was the originator of it, but also a lot of the Japanese players started working on it, and a lot of other people around the world did, and like they were nowhere near as optimized and like I would say that the deck Alex won with wasn't even optimized as well, but like it was a big step forward for like everyone.
Yeah.
It's not like anyone can just, oh, I'm just gonna put Wall 7 in my deck and put a Gilgamesh and I can win. It's like it takes a lot of work, to be honest, and we're lucky that we can build off the people before us.
Yeah, so like I spoke with a lot of people about Wall 7 in general. Actually said I don't know if I said this to you or not, but just like Wall 7 is like real. It's just is it gonna be complete at Worlds? I didn't believe in it being complete at Worlds. I still kind of don't, but I mean, look how it did, right? It still took over.
Yeah.
But even now, so I don't know, last right before the Winter Cup, because we were trying to decide the three decks that we were gonna have on my team. Uh, we're trying to figure out what the Wall 7 deck was supposed to look like, and uh, I reached out to Taruho about it, and they don't play the four color wall in Wall 7 anymore, and they don't play Gilgamesh. They just made it more like a fire, ice, water deck. And
Hmm.
I feel like over here and also in Europe, it's you do play Gilgamesh and you do play four color wall. So like there's that tension, and it's also kind of cool to see the differences. But like what's right, what's wrong. Obviously, one's probably more consistent than the other, but one's more powerful than the other. And I don't know. There's just like a lot of different takes with that kind of stuff, and also uh, I feel like at the end of the day, at this current moment, I feel like no matter how you build it, though, they share the same weaknesses. So that's kind of where I land on that deck, because it's if it had a different weakness, I feel like maybe there'd be a reason to play one kind over the other. But I can't really see. I mean, outside of like chaos when they have like nine colors in play, um,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't see like a glaring weakness that or like a glaring
Solution.
yeah, yeah. It's all the same kind of stuff, just playing with different cards. I feel like.
Right. And for I don't know what you think are the weaknesses, but for me, it's like there's not much interaction on your opponent's turn, besides the wall special. Um,
Yeah,
and you don't have very much kill potential. Like you have Axstar to remove forwards on attack as well as entry, but aside from that, it's pretty tough. You have to rely on your dull freezes. So if the twins ever hit the board, or Kukulane or like anything like that ever sticks, it's pretty hard for the Wall 7 deck to come back.
yeah. I think I recall reading in Alex's article at their Euro event. I forgot the exact event, but it was where he got first and Steve got second. Uh, I think they said like Steve went second and went turn one Palamporm Yuzuki, and
Hmm.
after looking at Alex's list, his only out like was to like hit like a
I think it was Axstar Onion
Axstar
Knight,
Onion
right?
Knight, yeah, or something like that. Because like you think about it, like the Axstar doesn't even do anything with the Yuzuki in play, so you have to Onion Knight bounce the Yuzuki before you kill a twin. You have to hit
Yep.
exactly like those. I mean, I guess I don't know if he played Ward at the time, but like that's another out. I guess is like Ward Onion Knight or something. But like that's you have to hit perfect in that scenario. I don't know. Um, so it's actually really interesting to see a lot of people adapt. Actually, you're one of the people that talked me into playing Chaos Arc for the Winter Cup, and that's one of the main reasons was you were saying it's good against Will 7. Uh,
Yeah.
and I agree with that now. I didn't necessarily agree with it before. I definitely thought it was still like kind of 50-50. And a lot of my main reasoning was Water Earth Chaos Arc for what it's worth. And my reasoning was like I need to win the game, and the deck takes too long to win the game with. But but um, it was the typical control style deck of like, okay, you've technically won the game. You just have to wait like 10 turns before you actually win the game. So
Hmm.
um, and I think that there are, I mean, just in general, I felt personally that Une was just a well positioned card against the deck as well, just because like they're gonna start spewing, so that's like not only a must answer threat that's hard for them to deal with, but also like it's a huge tempo swing for a deck like that. So um
Side note, Une is also the counter card to the Griever decks, the Ice Water Griever deck
Mm,
that showed up at Worlds, and Eureka also did well with immediately after.
yeah,
But that's kind of pushed out of the meta right now due to the popularity of the Une card.
yeah. So and that's it's funny you bring that up. So at Worlds, the Ice Water Griever deck that Kaka played had General Rogue Jadine in it, and then was it the week after or 2 weeks after Worlds that Eureka won, something like that.
Yeah, it was.
Um,
Mhm.
he cut the Rogue Jadine for Neo X Death and won with it, and I was sitting there like I think that's the better call. I think the Neo X that's actually better than Rug. Like Rug Rufus is good. Rug Griever is okay, I guess. like uh but I was just like Neo feels like it fit the strategy way better than Rug Jadine did.
Mhm.
Um so do you think that if we had more like major events that much else would kind of shake up around here, like especially with NA, because I feel like NA's got some really innovative deck builders. I know in Japan for a while, and still kind of like Warrior Light Tribal is kind of taking off. Do you think
Yeah.
anything like out of the ordinary would take off over here?
Um,
Do you think any like wind decks
I've been
maybe
following
even?
Japan's, and I think Japan has kind of like a natural progression going on right now, and I think we would fall somewhere similar to that. Like Earth, Water, Chaos Arc, 4-color Warrior of Light with all the EX bursts. Um, just now people are playing mono decks to counter the Chaos Arc decks. So yeah, I would definitely shift for sure. I don't know if we would come up with any new decks though.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next topic here. So, what do you think about the Crystal Cup structure here and LQs and how to qualify for Nats this year? We still sadly don't have prizing. I'm a little upset about that myself, but it is what it is. I'm sure they'll let us know as soon as we can. But what do you think about in the sense of how the Nats invites are distributed?
Can you go over quickly what they have said about that? Is it like top four for Materia Cups still?
Yes, it's top four for the Materia Cups, and then 64. So that's there's 8 Materia Cups, so that's 32 invites, and then there's 64 invites at LQs. Um, which I think they said there's 64 LQs. I'm not completely sure. I'm pretty sure it's 64 LQs. And then 4 freebie invites, which you got one of them.
Oh, sick.
So that's
I
100
love this
invites
format.
this year. Yeah, there you go. Um, hey, I got one last year, man. you know,
Don't curse me. Uh,
true.
I think it's very cool. I don't know if you said this earlier, but they also have a last chance qualifier, um,
Oh, I didn't
which
know
is
about
very
that.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Okay, I'm a big fan of that, and I'm a little sour about it a little bit too.
They
For
also
different
said that
reasons.
if there's additional no-shows, that there may be a chance that uh, they increase the qualification. So it was also top four for the last chance.
Yeah,
But
it's usually yeah. So I don't. Maybe this is just a me personal thing and somewhat collector kind of thing. So I qualified for Worlds in 2019, right? And I knew
mhm,
that before going into Nats. I qualified at Gen Con of 2019, so I knew I was going to Worlds regardless what happened at Nats. Um, and me as a player, decided I went to every single Crystal Cup that year. I won the Petite Cup finals that year. I went to like basically every single major event that year.
mhm,
Um, and I collected all the little storage boxes we got on entry. Uh, and I actually have them in my room, like on my shelf right next to me. Uh,
mhm, mhm.
I was not allowed to play in the Dark Crystal Cup, which was the last chance qualifier. So I couldn't get the Dark Emperor storage box, and there was no way for me to get it. So I was kind of upset. I'm like, this I want this year to be like a remembrance kind of thing. Like I'm here, but I'm technically not allowed to play. This is prizing I'm technically not allowed to ever get unless I like go buy it from somebody, right?
Did
Um,
you end up getting one?
I did. I got one from
Okay.
Amethyst, which was really nice. She didn't really care for it, so I was really happy that she let me have it. So it was really convenient, but like it's still, I don't know, like unique pricing to limited amount of player, or I'm not saying it right. Like I wasn't allowed to play, therefore I couldn't have access to that pricing kind of a thing. That kind of
Yeah,
turned me away in a way, but it is what it is, right? Maybe I'm crying over
I
something
think
that isn't that big of
I
a
think
deal.
it's a net positive. So like for me,
Yeah.
this is like my first card game, especially back then. I didn't play any. I never played Magic or anything like that, so I didn't have the experience of like like, oh, this is what they do in that card game. This is what they do in other card games.
Hmm.
But I think if I were in that position, I would appreciate like not having to contend with people already qualified for Nats, because I'd be like, oh, what if they're just like blocking for their friends, or you know they don't care if they win, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I do think that the integrity of the tournament is more secure this way, even like, and the pricing. I don't know how they can do that, but it is probably an incentive for people to actually go at least, because it's not exactly cheap to go to LA for everyone, and you go there hoping to qualify for Nats, and then you don't qualify. You hopefully Square has some stuff for the other people to do, but at least you get something.
Yeah. I I'm very much for uh there being some kind of area for spectators, like a different room or something, like a play area for people who aren't allowed to be in the playroom, right? To go hang out or whatever. I
Yeah,
kind of wish we had that in Japan this year, but I'm very much like a fan of something like that in the sense of you're allowed in here. Obviously, you can't talk to the players or whatever. Maybe it'd be a little harder to do that at something like nationals because it's bigger, but um at the end of the day, like everyone just wants to just hang out and have a good time and cheer on the players they want to cheer on. So I'm a very big fan of that, and especially when like let's say you go to a last chance qualifier and you don't qualify. Well, now what are you gonna do for the rest of the weekend? Are you gonna sit around in the hotel and wait around,
yeah,
right? Like no, you
yeah,
want to be with them. You want to be in the action in the moment, which is also it comes back to the last nationals, how I had that day one skip, right? Um, and we originally weren't allowed in, and then they let us in to spectate. Later on, they changed that decision. I was so happy about that. I'm pretty sure there was a couple of people that were like really excited about that too. And it's just like just the presence, right? I want to be in the moment with everybody else, even though I wasn't playing the game. I wanted to be there and watch the games because there were some crazy games. You had some crazy games, bro.
I
Um,
definitely had some crazy games.
and if I wasn't allowed in that room to watch those games, like it would have been a story, but I felt more part of it because I was there because I was in the moment with you guys. Like that meant so much to me. So uh, I'm hoping that they take note of that for the future and for like even if it's like a spectator room to with a TV, like that's totally reasonable. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
One step at a time kind of a thing. And we take notice of that kind of stuff. It's really convenient. It's really nice.
Yep.
Um,
I think in regards to the other materia cups, um, I think I'll just say what I like and dislike, I
okay.
guess, or what I would change. So I like that they
What?
announced the schedule pretty early, like, early
Yes.
February. That's
Yes.
amazing.
I think this is
Um,
like a month or so before all the other ones have been announced. From
yes,
previous years, something like that, a month or
maybe
so.
like a week or two, but it just makes a big difference.
Yes, it
Um,
does.
I like that they, increased the number by two. Um, it's pretty cool that Chicago and Canada got one.
Yeah.
Um, I think the thing that I dislike, and it's kind of a little bit on the stores, but I like when some of the stores each have their own way of doing it. But I like it when the stores at least announce when they're gonna sell the tickets, so it's kind of an even playing field. I feel like the game is a little too big for most game stores now. Like, as interest in Chicago like instantly sold out. Um,
Right.
but at least it gives kind of a semi-level playing field for, like, if you're trying to get a ticket, at least you can. It's not like, oh, 3:33 at Thursday kind of thing. It's like, oh, hey, the tickets are up. Um, so that is okay. Yeah. What about you?
So I so I'm gonna stick with Chicago here for a second. Because I'm still tentative on going. I'm leaning towards yes. I'm just getting some. I'll know by Friday for sure. More tickets go on sale on Friday. So, but I once I heard Chicago got an event, I was pretty excited for them because I went to Bahamut Brawl, which was the previous tournament that they ran. I forget how many people were there. But it was during Opus 14 or 15 when Sky Pirates were a thing, and it was like, Bismarck, Leviathan, Vaughn, all the craziness. Pinello, that was like the pseudo best deck.
Avalanche.
Yeah, and Avalanche. Yeah, that's where I got sauced for the first time, bro. Steve Sauce got me, bro. Um, yeah, you got me with Mono Ice. Is yeah, I got. Um, anyways, that was a tournament that I feel like was one of the uh most well run tournaments that I've been to. And I noticed that. So I've, not to toot my own horn, but I've played card games for like too long, for like 20 years of my life, and I take big notice of this kind of stuff. So whenever I see this kind of stuff, I just, like I said, I take note of it, and I spread the word, kind of a thing. Like I've told a lot of people that, hey, Chicago runs a really good tournament, but I've also said the only thing that I'm worried about is the size of the store. And when I heard that like they're gonna sell 100 tickets in the size of that store, I was like, "There's no way they can fit 100 in there." Maybe they can, and I just don't know. Maybe the store got bigger. I have no idea. I haven't been there for a couple years. That was something that I was like worried about, but I was confident that they would figure it out. And just because of who Bill is, I've talked with Bill a lot about the game and all that kind of stuff. Not for a while, but back then when I was at that tournament, I talked to them a lot. Um, because I also run events at my LGS for Final Fantasy. So we shared some tips and pointers with each other and all that kind of stuff. And it was good conversations. Um, and so when I heard that he was getting, an event, I was like super ecstatic about it as well. Because I know that it would be a good event. And the one worry that I had, like he squashed it, right? Like he expanded the event. Like that's huge. That's
Tentatively. It's almost guaranteed, but
Oh, it is tentative still? Okay, sure. Um, so like that right there, one, so like kudos to him. That's freaking amazing. And it's a big risk, right? If you look at it from a business perspective, like I don't know the right numbers. I'm not even gonna guess, but like he's gonna be putting out more money, or the company that he. I don't know if I'm pretty sure he doesn't own the store. I'm not completely sure though, but the
I
store,
think
the
he's the
store.
assistant manager
Okay,
or something.
but yeah, the store's going to be putting more money towards the event, right? But how much more money are they going to be making back? Uh,
Yeah.
it's a risk, and obviously, if it sells out again, they're going to probably make their money back easily. That's my guess. But like, if it doesn't, maybe they're going to lose money. I don't know. But at
Yep.
the end of the day, it's also something that's like humongous for the community. The community is going to recognize this. Um, I don't want to I don't want to step on any toes or put any like words in anybody's mouth, but like him making this leap forward definitely looks good for his future events as well, right? Like he might, if everything goes, well, and the tournament's a huge success, there's probably a good chance he gets a tournament next year too. Like I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but these are all the right footsteps, and I'm more confident in somebody like Bill to make all this work, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
Uh, Now for like some other situations, so like I agree with you on the tickets. Uh, I like when people say they're on sale on Friday or on Saturday at this time, because doing it just sporadically, I feel like it's like a war zone. It's kind of crazy. It's already kind of crazy,
Wait,
and
I have a hot topic to ask you about. I would like to hear your opinion on this.
okay.
Um, and my opinion is I think it's good, but what is your opinion on hold like Materia Cups holding some tickets for their locals, or like making sure that their locals are able to attend? Uh,
Okay, so I see it both ways here, but I think overall it is a good thing. Um, is it a good thing? I'm not trying to BM Canada by saying this, but is it a good thing for a 50-person tournament to hold 20 of their tickets? Probably not. Um, is it okay for like a 100-person tournament to hold 20 tickets? Probably yes. Right? Like there's just a big difference there, right? It's literally, you know,
Number wise.
yeah. So, uh, because just feeling wise, I mean, I'll tell you right now, there are like five, six, seven people in Kansas that don't have a Kansas City Materia Cup ticket, and that's a feel bad. And I'm not trying to say it as like a bias or anything like that. Like I have my own ticket, and I'm gonna play. But my point is, if you can't play in a major event that's in your city, how does that make you feel about the game? Right? It doesn't feel good at all. It feels terrible.
Yeah.
So, all that excitement that those people had, like, oh man, we're getting an event, let's go, I'm gonna be so excited. Wait, I can't play because I missed the 2 minute sellout, right? Like that doesn't
Right.
feel good. That feels very bad. So, is it fair or unfair? I mean, I'll be real, it is unfair, right? It's if you're holding 20 tickets for your locals, that is something that's unfair. But it's more of a community sense, I feel like, in that sense. Like you want, if a certain area is getting the event, um I wouldn't consider that a bias either. Like the people in that area, like I don't think they're entitled per se to those tickets, but in a way I look at it as a celebration for the game in that area. And if you're not doing that for those people, where is it, where we go from here? It's not going to go uphill, it's probably going to go downhill because it's all random. Like if this is definitely an exaggeration, but what if like we had this, what, the Chicago tickets sold out in like a minute, right? what
They were
if
insane.
what if all the tickets in Chicago sold out and nobody from Chicago got a ticket? Right, that's a huge exaggeration, but that was possible. How would the Chicago people feel? Like that's that's kind of crazy, right? That's I I
In a way,
just
that kind of like showcases that, to my previous point, the game is getting a little too big for, some game stores.
Mhm.
And it's not really up to the game stores to fix this. It's kind of up to Square to, figure it out.
Yes, that is something I
It's
kind of
not
want to.
fair to blame the stores.
Yes, and I hope people don't blame the stores. I've seen a little bit of that on the NA page, but I've been trying to keep track of that and make sure it doesn't happen. Like it, this at the end of the day, this isn't. I don't want to like point fingers and be like, oh, it's bad Square Enix, bad store. No, 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 that's not my point here. But this is what the stores are given. This is what they can do or can't do. Like at the end of the day, it's Square Enix to change this kind of situation because they're giving all the responsibility to the store, but you got to remember like the store is only getting X amount of product or pricing or whatever, and they're gonna hold it in that kind of sense of this is what we have. So you know if there's more demand than supply, then what do you do? Like it's not an easy task. So
Yep. I mean, they have improved. They took a lot of the feedback that we gave them last year from that. Like we would like, the schedule to be announced a little earlier. We would like more tournaments. Only one LQ, like double the amount of LQ, so people can stay invested in the game. So like, it seems like they have been taking feedback. So we'll see how they kind of respond, because like, as you say, it's a tough problem to solve. Like, and it's probably almost impossible for them to solve midway through the season. Like they already have everything planned out. So really, a lot of these changes for the Materia Cups at least will probably come next year. I think, realistically speaking.
yeah, and I think more now than ever, I think that our feedback matters most. Um, I think it is very important to give our feedback in a constructive manner and to, I'm not saying, if you're upset, to be super positive about it, whatever. No, like let your feelings go, but do it in a constructive way, right? Like if you're upset about something, it's probably nice to let them know and give some feedback on why you feel that way, or what a solution to the problem. Like, oh, I couldn't buy a ticket because it sold out in less than a minute, and or it sucks because I was driving home from work or whatever. It's unrealistic to this reminds me of concert tickets that sell out really fast, right? That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Taylor
And
Swift
it's
tickets, man.
Taylor Swift, oh boy. But yeah, that's kind of what it reminds me of. But it's a lot different when it's only like 100 or even 50. Like it's just unrealistic, and the cap, it seems like the cap is coming from the stores, but I don't think that's where the bottleneck like actually is. The bottleneck is at Square Enix. It's just when it's given to the stores, then what's the store to do? Like I think my this is hot takey for me. Um, Run events in hotels. That solves a lot of problems. Now you'll still need, judges and staff and all that kind of stuff. But the hotel like ballrooms and stuff are usually big enough to hold, 150, 200, 250 people, like depending on where it's at. It's also a hotel, so it's somewhere that you can stay. Um, and then if you want to make money some way, or if a store wants to like sponsor the event or do whatever, like that's a different topic, subject, whatever. But I think from a player's perspective, that solves a lot of problems, is just running it at a good quality hotel with a good sized like ballroom that we could use.
Yep.
I think that's, or even these stores that are selling out tickets could do something like that too. Although I'm sure they kind of want some of it to be in the store, but
Yeah, they want sure they
the
want to profit
revenue,
themselves. Yeah.
right? Okay, so I also have some feedback. If we have some time, I'll get around to this later. I don't know if we'll have time, but I asked all the players who made top 16 of nationals their opinions on a lot of things, like what do they like and dislike about the game, what makes you continue playing the game, if you could change anything, things like that. Um, just some cool feedback stuff. I might circle back around to, like what's the favorite formats, all that kind of stuff. But
Good segue to our next topic, right?
kind of. So, um, yeah. So these, I think we can all agree. I think actually the turning point for me was the set 11, the set with BFA. I think it's set 11.
Yeah,
Um,
Marshred's BFA.
yeah, I think that was like the turning point for me, but it still wasn't like broken back then, but it was still like very eye opening. Um, I think that was when the game kind of took off in a power level sense, but not like absurd. Like, uh, I guess the question I'm asking here is, how do you think the game's evolved, and do you think it's in a positive or a negative manner? Is it too quick? Is it not quick enough? Is it is it toxic in a toxic environment for the game? And I think for me personally, for power level reasons, I feel like set 11 was probably where it all started. That was the root of it, but it was still I feel like it was still more skill based, whereas I feel like now this is drastic, but my measurement here is an EX burst, right? Um an EX burst now, depending on what it is, like Love 6 for example, that's the highest, right? Like that's the best EX burst in the game probably. um Love 6 now is probably the best it's ever been since it's been released. And that's
Hmm.
just because the tempo swing is so huge now, and it matters more now than it was, 5, 6 sets ago. Was it still good 5 or 6 sets ago? Yeah, it was. But it nowadays, because people aren't playing too many backups, I feel like the tempo swing's huge because they're not playing backups, so they have to pay the full cost again. Um, Things like that. It That's what kind of worries me, and it takes some of the skill out of the game. Not to say that there's no skill. There's definitely still skill. I just think it's reapplied somewhere else. And right now, I think that's in the
Yeah.
deck building.
So for me, I think so. Personally, I still really like the game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I don't know if this might be like a hot takey thing, but like I mostly like playing control decks. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the way that the game has evolved is like you used to be engaged in like, very tight fighting for board states. You know, Opus 8, Opus 9, you know, Water, Wind, Rampair, that
Yep.
kind of stuff. You have to evaluate the board very carefully. I think half the battle now is like making sure your deck is actually really, really good. So half of it's like the deck building phase now.
Yes.
It's like if you're playing a bad deck, you can't really keep up with some of like the broken cards. Um, and I really enjoy like that aspect of the game myself. So like I don't mind it at all. Um, but like for sure, it is a lot faster, right? Like we would never have had like Cat 13, you know, Axar playing like three guys at once. Like when Shinryu was announced, I thought that card was going to be really bad because I was like, dude, there's no way they're going to have three forwards, like three more forwards than me. And it turns out it was one of the best cards of the set because my opponents frequently had three more forwards than me.
Right.
um, yeah, it's definitely very different now. Definitely faster. Um, I don't think it's inherently good or bad. Like like the national set, I think it was Opus 20.
I think that's right.
I think a lot of people actually really enjoyed that set. Like you know, out of the context of everything, people really enjoyed that set because there was a wide variety of decks that they could play. There's a lot of different strategies they can employ. So I think it really kind of depends on the set. I think people in general do not like this set because aggro is very strong, and because the cards are more powerful and more fast, it feels like you have less what do you call it? Decision making that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the in-game part. But you know that might change. Probably will change for sure. You know, with the limit break mechanic.
Right. Yeah, I think this might have something to do with the two. Like, think of the starter decks they've made recently, right? Like, it started with Avalanche. Avalanche was an aggro deck that was like very good deck, and it had access to Amaterasu and just and Miss Dragon back then, I guess too. Whatever, and like, um, that was something a new player or even a current player, whatever, could just pick up and just like run over somebody with, and it changed your deck building. Like, I mean, back then, again, like Sky Pirates, right? Like, you were worried about playing Norse Talon and stuff because it get blown up by Wedge. Like, that that is at the deck building level, right? You just got to know that exists. Are you willing to like take that risk? And then the other thing is like the other FF13, right? Arguably, I mean, I don't think it's the best aggro deck now, but for a long time, there were some people like wanting to call bans or limits on something of that deck because it's so consistent. You're just like two forwards turn one, and then lightning on turn two, and just go in, right? Now people could have answers for that, but you have to like mulligan for it, and then also um, if you don't know you're playing against FF13 before you sit down, like that changes a lot of stuff too. It was kind of frustrating in a way, um, and all those cards um, being more popular, I would say, than other archetypes because they were a starter deck. Um, I could see some people getting like upset with that kind of thing, and then also, um, here's the kicker for all of this too. Anytime aggro has card advantage, that's very dangerous. That's very scary because if you're gonna always have card advantage, why play something else? Like just win the game as soon as you can, right? Like there's no reason to play something else. Aggro usually doesn't have card advantage when I play other card games. Like aggro is more of a all in, oh you have the answer, I lose. That's usually the strategy of aggro. It's to win before your opponents can play all their cards. Like they'll lose the game with cards in their hand.
Hmm.
Whereas like in this game, it's like, oh well, okay, with FF13, you clear my board, I still have a hand. I can still do stuff. And that's kind of scary sometimes. I don't think 13's too good now. I think we have way better like solutions and answers. But like Wall 7, I guess you could have that kind of conversation about as well. It's just I think we can all agree the game's gotten dramatically faster paced. And I think me and you agree on the it's about deck building more now. Uh, I think personally that there's probably less skill in the game, but there is skill. It's more about matchups now, and knowing what you're bringing to the tournament. It's I don't say it's like lottery because that's kind of that doesn't that's not a fair assessment. No matter what format you're in, if you're in Opus 5, you still have good and bad matchups, right? You just do. Like let's just 80-20, the famous 80-20, right? You still have that 20% chance to win. It doesn't matter what the two decks are. You can still win. And because like I said, with the high variance of bursts, I mean it depends what deck you're playing, but like you could have like the worst matchup in the world, but hit a burst at the right time, and now it's like you could be saved. I don't think that was necessarily the case back in the day. You probably had to hit 2 or 3 bursts. I remember. I mean, we've all been there. Like I remember getting 6 EX bursts in a tournament and still losing. Like that that happens. You know. I guess my point is just like right now. I agree with your sense of you know your deck needs to be a good deck. You need to bring good cards to the table. Uh, I've always been a fan ever since. Oh boy, is it Soiree maybe? I think it was since Soiree. So was that set 16 or something like that? Um, I feel like around that area was when I personally felt I could bring 50 good cards at all times. I felt like a lot of decks that I played in the past were more of a, here's like 40 good cards and 10 medium cards kind of thing. And ever since like around the soiree meta, I felt like if I'm playing a deck, it better have like 48 or 49 good cards. Like it's got to be right there. Otherwise, I'm not bringing it. Um,
That's why you never play my decks, bro. You always say there's 30 good cards and 20 bad cards.
yeah, dude. Like it. I mean, well, because you play control decks and the control some control cards are situational. That's why. So it just and it's situational depend on the meta. You just don't know. So, um, but yeah, like I definitely think that's how it is nowadays. Is you need to know why every single card is in your deck, and they matter. If you're going to be cute about something, I feel like it's got to be like 5 cards or less. You got to know everything that's going on. It's a big deal. Um,
Yeah, where it's much rarer now, I think, for like a complete rogue deck to show up out of nowhere. Like it used to happen a lot more often.
yeah,
Opus 9, 8, 10.
if it does, I feel like a lot of the cards are still known. Like an example, I guess, like Water Lightning Scions, right? Like I feel like when that deck, it could be Water Lightning or Fire. I feel like when Scions first came out, it was more towards the Fire Lightning side that people played, and then I think it was JFB who did it first. I don't remember. Somebody did it with Water Lightning, and then that kind of took off for a while, and
Yeah.
that kind of sense it's like, okay, well, we know the good water cards, so it makes sense they go together. It is what it is. I think that's kind of the innovation we see sometimes nowadays, but like
You're never gonna be like, oh, I don't know at least 30 of their cards. Whereas, back then I remember at the Arizona Crystal Cup, you and your team or people you worked with were playing like this weird Moogle deck.
yeah,
And what's it? Emmanuel was playing a fire water deck that was also not like
yeah,
I mean, I would never have guessed like within 20 to 30 of his cards too, so it's just like
yep,
the good cards are pretty known now, or they hopefully are. Hopefully you are able, you or your teammates are able to evaluate which ones are like the best cards. So at least you're aware of them. You don't have to play them, but you have to know they exist, kind of thing.
right. And I feel like back then, um, actually that's like a good point. Just in general, back then, for the most part, aggro was that kind of all-in strat that died to Shantoto, because there was no Matarasu back then. Um, so a lot of people didn't play aggro. They just went big and tried, and that's kind of what we were trying to do with the Moogle deck was how big can we actually go? We want to always go over the top. And then what did we lose to? We lost to aggro. Like um like Sam Tool was playing Water Lightning aggro in that tournament. And he went like undefeated all the way to top 8, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then yeah, Emmanuel was on fire water aggro. Like and it's opinionated in the sense I feel like they're both good, but they're both like the decks are good, but they're also both back then were CP efficient. Like a lot of the cards cost 2 or 3, so I guess back then it was kind of okay to play those decks. But I feel like aggro decks in the past, you played a card, you didn't get a card back. That was like you were playing Vikings back then to get your cards back. That's about it. Um, Whereas now your aggro decks, you do get your cards back, so it's a little scary. Um, so let me talk about this real quick. So what? I mean, I'm pretty sure. Didn't they announce that all the formats are going to be standard? I'm pretty sure they said that.
Yes.
Yeah.
There will be a F5 side event at Bahama or the Chicago event.
Yeah. Um, do you think that they should implement a different format, or do you think that should be up to the store's choice, or do you think do you want to play something that's not standard personally?
Personally, I only like standard um as like the main format. Um, I personally do not like the draft for this game because I feel like the card pool is not big enough in each set, and sometimes there's synergies that are just like not even like completed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe sometimes only dependent on like the legendary, like for example, there was like a Balthier last set. Um, I like Cube. I think the logistics of Cube is like too hard for a store to run though, and I think team tournament would be fun, but I don't know how that would go, and it seems like some people might be like, oh, there's a super team, I can't beat them and not go kind of thing, or that I don't really know if that's like fair either, or how it would work.
What
So I think
about
I'm mostly a standard guy.
what about two deck format?
Um, two deck is okay. It's okay. I
Look,
usually
you
end up
you
just
got two
finding out.
trophies with two deck, bro. I'm just
That's
saying.
true, but usually what happens is like one round in, I'm like, man, I just only want to play my one deck. I don't really want to play the second deck. Like,
Oh, that's great.
I'm just like, I like to play the Earth deck and not my other deck.
Yeah, I think there's strategy in two deck, but I'm personally more of a one deck person as well. Something like this too. I guess we can bring this up. The Worlds was like this too, and I feel like a lot of Japan events are like this just in general, where they have two decks, but it's still best of one, right? Like when you played in Worlds, first 4 rounds was one deck, and then the second 4 rounds was a different deck. Like I feel
So
like that's different than our two deck here in an A because you have to win with both your decks, and that was their day two, but that's our entire tournament. So when it comes to like the strategy, right? Like I could lose to a Matarasu with one deck, um, or sorry, like I could share weaknesses with both my decks. I guess what I'm trying to say. Both my decks could lose to Amaterasu, but you could only have Amaterasu in one of your decks. So I could play around that, and I could bring two decks with that similar weakness, and I kind of like that. But you couldn't do that in your tournament at Worlds because like it's separated.
yeah, so I think my main problem with two deck, personally, is I feel like it is a little too luck based in terms of like, regardless of which one you choose, like the Japan one or the American one, it's like if I choose my deck with the good matchup against your deck with the good matchup or bad matchup, like I'm probably gonna win. So I think it's like a little too coin flippy, and usually like if it then my second deck is might also be like it happened a lot I think in my nats for North America is like my second deck's also like only good against one of their decks. So if I like choose the wrong order of my deck, I'm just probably gonna lose like no matter what because of what we talked about earlier, like matchups and stuff. So I don't quite enjoy that very much.
Okay, so we don't got too much time left, so let's discuss Limit Break real quick. Give me a rundown on what you think of Limit Break at the moment, and I'll give my opinions, and then we can go through some of the cards.
Yeah, I think Limit Break is a very cool mechanic. I think it adds a lot of you know strategy to the game. You basically are always guaranteed an option, like at least an option. Maybe it's not good an option. So it nerfs aggro. People complain a lot about aggro. It is a nerf to aggro in the beginning because like aggro is most strong when they're killing you and you're not set up. Also gives aggro a comeback mechanic or some guaranteed play, so it's not like completely one-sided in mid-range or controls favor. So I'm a big fan. It's a little worrying. It's like as soon as they print out like a Stern level card for Limit Break, that's gonna be really bad. So they have to either not do that or be fast on the bans. And yeah, I think that's my initial thoughts on it. I'm generically positive on it for now.
So I'm like the opposite. I'm generically negative, but I see design space that exists that it could be insanely good for the game at this point. But I'm a little scared after seeing some of the cards. But I mean, we'll let them take the wheel, right? Like it's not our choice. It's up to them. But like what Limit Break does is reduces variance, right? Like you now have access to a card every single game. Is it a good card? It depends on the matchup, right? It just depends, whatever. But you always have it. You always have access to it on turn one, whenever you want. Is it a good play or not? That's a different, subject. But you don't have to naturally draw it anymore. So they have to be careful with some of those cards because you're going to always have it on turn one if you want it. So that
Yep.
that can be a little worrisome. So we actually talked about this a little bit, like the cloud, like Viridian Palompoem, for example, is kind of a lot worse now because every purple deck is going to have access to that cloud, and just it existing, whether people play it or not, just it existing, I feel like will kind of push away a lot of those Viridian Palompoem decks, just because it's there. It is a card. Um, Now I do think Final Fantasy is the kind of game that people are going to play whatever they want to play regardless. But if we ever get big enough and have like thousands of players and things like that, I think it's going to be like a big deal in the sense of this card exists, therefore a lot of these decks get pushed out, and I'm a little bit worried about that. But I mean, we'll see what happens.
I mean, I
Um,
think also that like for your cloud might kill Palamporm, right? But the fire water player will theoretically also have something good to play. So I think it all kind of balances out.
right, and in that scenario too, like I'm playing a two CP card, right, to make you limit break. Like that's is that okay? Is that fine? Like, is that an okay trade? I can't really
I don't,
evaluate that right now,
we
right?
don't know yet, but
Yeah,
seems okay.
right. Like, I mean, that's the cheapest it's gonna get, right? I'm trading my two mana, my two CP card for that. Like, it seems all right. So, and then something I think right now that would be okay is like Tenzin. I think this would be good with tribal. I think like imagine guaranteeing a Tenzin on turn one, or guaranteeing A-list on turn one, or something like that. Maybe some Viking thing. I think that would be good for tribal decks. I don't think that would be too strong. I think we're in a time right now where card advantage cards like that, specifically for dragoons or whatever, knights, any of that. I think that'd be a good design space. So I wonder if they're gonna do anything like that.
I mean, we got Victoria.
Yeah, but
Not
that's
that.
not really a travel card.
One thing I think I have noticed though about the limit break stuff from what we've seen, obviously not everything, is most of the cards are actually a reactive card. Um, I think the most proactive card is Mont Leonis.
Hmm.
So it's not. So like some people have said like, oh, what if I just put like 307 CP Odins in my deck? Because I can, it's like there's no punish for it. It's like if I draw my Odins, I'll just discard them to play a limit break card. But it's like a lot of these bad cards, like 7 CP Odin, do the same. They kill a guy. So it's like if I'm discarding my bad cards that kill a guy to play a card that also doesn't kill a guy, it's like I just play the black belt. So I still think you have to play like 50 good cards in your main deck, and then figure out the limit break stuff later. But that's my opinion.
Right. Are there any specific limit break cards you want to talk about? I feel like Zach is probably like it was like the first one shown, and it's kind of medium minus. I don't know if.
Yeah, I think it's very cool that a lot of the quote unquote really good ones, I think the obviously good ones, like, Tidus or Montleones are like mono based. So they're not like, people were immediately like rightfully worried, they're like, oh, what if I just play like Shantoto or Taro in my deck? And then I can play like every single good limit break card.
Hmm.
I mean, the best ones seem, Cloud is obviously pretty generically good, but I mean, I can't be playing Leonis in my Earth decks or Ace. I mean, I can't have them just because I can, but it's not good.
Right. I'm on the side of I with Tyro and Shantoto. I think that's actually kind of really cool. That you can play a lot of limit break stuff. Now they got to be careful how strong they are, but I think that'd be really cool to like have a limit break deck of like 5 or 6 different elements. And I mean, I'll be real. Like the first thing I thought of was Soiree. Is Soiree a good deck again? Like it's probably one of the best decks that has Tyro in it, right? So and Shantoto, just having some bursts and then having limit breaks. Like there is a world where you like double burst and then limit break and you just gain like 3 or 4 cards of card advantage, right? Like that. That is a thing. What do you? I know you liked Victoria. What was it that you liked about Victoria?
Yeah. Victoria is very cool. Ice as an element doesn't have very much removal that isn't based on like if they're dull or not. So the fact that she can just uh minus 7k if they have 2 cards or less, which is like relatively easy in ice, is pretty good. So it's like an anti-aggro card. Usually they do have to pitch out like most of their hand to start their aggro engine, like start the lightning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As well as it does get big. She can potentially get to 10k, and ice traditionally has low power forwards. Kind of fits all the slots.
Okay. Um, I think Cloud is a game changer, but I also think it is a medium power card. What do you think?
I think it's a very good card, but like if you were to have that card, if I could have that card right now, I would probably wouldn't care that much. Like it's definitely good, but it's
Yeah,
not broken.
yeah.
Like it's just a Kuja like that you always have access to. It's like it's
Yes.
fine.
I'm very much of the because it exists, it will be good kind of thing. But I don't know how good it actually. Like, I think this goes in like. I mean, we won't know because we don't know how many lower breaks are in every color. But like, this is definitely one of those cards that's like, oh, if you're playing purple, you probably play one of this. Like, regardless, like that's it's just spot removal. It's just very solid.
Yep.
Titus. So this Titus, I was a very big fan of. It this is what I want to see out of limit break cards. It's go big, go home kind of thing. It's Haymaker, and uh, I it's not a mono water card, but it is a mono water card, right? Like
Yep.
it made me think a lot because it says you have 8 or more. So it doesn't say 8 or more characters. It says forwards or backups. So and water's right now kind of more on the monster side. So that already was kind of interesting to me. But
And then to break your blue worms.
yeah, there you go.
I
um yeah, what do you think about Titus?
think it's good. It's hard to evaluate because it's so expensive. I think one thing I do like though is like even though it is super expensive and the effect is super good, they're not like a Mont doesn't straight up kill him. Like they're all like Mont and Tidus are both 9k,
Yes.
which I think is pretty valuable. If I'm
Yeah.
investing that much in a card.
So let's pull up Mont real quick. So this came from, I think there's a poster. The poster of this set is a Renoa. It's a really cool artwork, and this came from the poster. And when I read this Mont Leonis for the first time, uh, the first thing, I don't know if anyone else thought this. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking this. I don't know. I wanted a card like this in every single element. That's the first thing I thought of. Like this is a like mono fire boss card, right? I want something like that for every element. How cool would that be? I don't think they're doing that, but
I mean,
wait,
I would say Tidus and Ace are like semi-boss cards. Like Tidus for sure is a boss card. Ace is outclassed by Luso, but
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what do you like or dislike about this Montleonis?
So one thing I think you briefly mentioned is I like how both him and Tidus and Ace to a little bit is they really incentivize you to play backups. Like I mean,
Yes,
obviously they don't really work if you don't have backups, but
yes,
it is a way of slowing. Like if you can like get to 5 backups before in the current meta, maybe you get to 5 backups, but you have like one card in hand and they have like a bunch of dudes. You're just gonna die no matter what. now you're guaranteed your boss card play, which might, maybe will turn the game. So I do like that a lot. And, the effect is obviously really good. You can play Axstar, you can play Tyvis, you play Tyvis to play Axstar. It's very good.
Yeah, I feel like Ace, Cheetahs, and Mont all feel that Limit Break feel to me, right? Because they are boss cards. Whereas like Zac, Victora, and Cloud feel kind of like uh, not so much. Like you're not expending that resource, kind of. You know what I mean? Like
I
like
like that it's like a
roadblocks.
mini it's like a mini sideboard like in your game
Yes.
kind of thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm a big fan of this Mont Leonis. I'm not a big Mono Fire player anymore, but like this is the design space I like to see. Like this is a really cool card. I really like this, and I hope that this branches out to the other elements. We'll see. Maybe it'll happen over the next couple sets. I don't know, but like this is a really cool card.
Like one card you can compare this to back then is like the 8 CP Fire Emperor's Handy. It lets you
Yes,
play like a 1 or 3, basically it let you play 3 fire cards if you were like damage 5 or something. But like the thing is, it was so you would never really play it because you can only play it in such a niche situation. Like you're set up, you have forwards in your bin, like you're not gonna die if you play this. Whereas like having Mont Leonis in the sideboard is like the same thing, but you have more. It's like always there, right? It's what we talked about. It's always there,
the
so you can
choice.
play it when
Yeah,
it's good, and you don't have to sacrifice your like slots in your deck to play a bad card 90% of
correct.
the time.
Right. Yeah, just having the choice is like pretty huge. All right, and I have a preview card here, and it is
Kudos to the
a
people who actually watch the entire thing, though, and didn't
I'm
just skip
gonna
to the
I'm
end.
gonna I'm gonna post it before if they don't want to watch it. It's fine. But it's a Sagard here, and this is kind of an interesting one. I don't know how good it actually is, but the one thing I like about it is it's not like a cost per se to dole your backups. It is, you can play Sagard and trigger on the stack. You can like Asura or something, activate your backups, and then dole them. It also can bring back any forward that costs 6 or less, not just an Earth forward. Although this probably is a mono Earth card, is my guess. But I'm thinking, I don't know, is there something with the Earth Lightning Regis deck kind of thing? I don't know. Maybe I'm going too deep, but like that's the first thing I thought of, or like even like an Earth Wind deck, or I don't know, just the fact that you can bring back any 6 drop or less. Like you can just bring back Warrior Light, old fashioned 4 CP Warrior Light, right? Like that's a thing too. Um, but the 4 backups thing is kind of a big deal. So I almost feel like if this is not an Earth Wind, it's kind of a huge ask. Because like again, I can see realistically having 4 backups, playing Sagard, and then trigger on the stack Asura, activate, and then dole them to resurrect something. I can't really see
I
anything
think this is a
else.
mono Earth card personally.
You think so?
Yeah. And the reason I say that is just because like the mono decks are just easier to get the 5 backups, because they have like Leather Worker or whatever the free backups are. I
Yeah,
know in
Leather
Earth
Worker.
it's
Yep.
Leather Worker. Um, yeah, it's just low investment. You can Ingus to pull this guy out when you do have 5 backups. Ingus is obviously an insane target, so I think I would start with mono Earth. But I think the design space is like super interesting for this card.
I think the crystal part is mostly irrelevant. Um, but
Robel, bro.
yeah, I guess it's there, but that's not why I'm excited about the card. I think this being like in theory, like this is like a 7 CP, 7K that um brings back a dude, and that person, that thing you get back is most likely going to be like a bomb of some sort. It's gonna be something huge.
Yep.
So yeah,
It's very
that's
cool. I don't. Is there any way to tutor FFBE cards with a backup right now?
yes. There's a Moogle. It's like Mog FFBE.
Cool.
I think that's it. There might be another one. But I think that's the only one that I can think of. And it is Wind Earth. There you go.
Yeah. I'm an Ingus fan. It's full art. Oh, one thing I also forgot to mention when we were on limit breaks.
Uh-huh.
Good place to flex your, if they ever do a full art limit break, you can just throw in one that doesn't make sense in your deck, but you know, it's just going to be a cost and you can have more full arts in your deck.
Oh, I wanted to mention this on Limit Break too. I think nobody's touched on this. I think decks like Chaos Arc or decks with lots of dark or light cards in general get a buff from Limit Break because you can clutter. Look, cluttering's bad, right? Having 4 dark cards in your hand's bad, but it's less bad when you're playing a card from your Limit Break deck instead of your hand. So the odds of you being able to play a card goes up now because the Limit Break deck exists. I don't know if that's going to matter or not, but that is something, consistency wise, that does change the game a little bit.
Yeah.
So I don't, again, I don't know if that's going to matter or not. Who knows? Maybe this is like 1% change, like, like whatever, but it's something to take note of because I think Chaos Arc is probably the only deck that could affect, I guess, because they play 6 dark cards. Whereas like maybe the Shinryu and one Medine is probably the next highest level of that. I don't know, but if some
Eden now, bro.
oh
Eden.
true, yeah, that card's pretty cool. But yeah, that's my preview card. Thanks for hanging out, Viridian. Any closing thoughts?
No, I actually really have to go catch a work meeting, but thanks for having me. Always, it's very cool to be part of KP Talks.
Oh yeah. Alrighty, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll catch you later.